So hello to all my friends out there and enemies as well. This is Mark Connor, malicious Mark Connor, the producer of BoxersAndWritersMagazine.com, or shall I say publisher of it. And I'm here with David Awesome Lawrence in Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, New York. The oldest operating boxing gym, at least in the United States. It's the most famous one, I'd say, in the world. And so it's an appropriate place for a guy like David Lawrence to have his office. He's known as the king of white-collar boxing. He's the first real white-collar boxer in the world. And we're here to talk about two of his books. One, In the Suburb of Possible Suicide, which is his recently published novel, and the other one, On Jail, the Essays. And the coolest thing about these books, I'm being very careful not to have the creases bent or anything, because I know they're going to be very valuable collector's items one day, because I don't know if it's going to be that visible. It won't be that visible on camera here, but he signed them for me. And I love how he personalizes his signatures to people, his autographs. Being a fellow boxer, he says to me, "Mark, I'm glad I never fought you, or I'd have to commit suicide," which is apropos for the title. And in jail, he says, "Mark, stay away from jail, or you'll love it like me." So that's a sense of humor of David Lawrence. So I just want to ask you to talk to me about these two books in particular, and anything else you'd like to let your meandering mind cover in regards to life in boxing and in writing.
I've just written a new book, which will be coming out in my Indian publisher, Cyberwit, called, I forgot what it's called, but it's about the relationship between boxing and poetry, and it's a book of poems, and I felt both go to the soul. When I'm fighting someone, I'm hurt, and I'm hurting, and there's a community of sad feelings and aggression that is kind of exciting. When I'm writing poetry, I'm lost in myself. It's kind of sad. It's almost like I'm getting punched because the thoughts that are coming out of me are not dictated by my consciousness, but are dictated by my unconsciousness. So I regard the two as two major factors in my life. And I've done a lot of things in my life. I was a tennis tournament player. I was ranked number 27th in the East Coast, and it just didn't touch me. I was a ski race. I was ranked 110th or something in the East Coast, and it didn't touch me. Boxing touched me. It hit me, in fact. So it was meaningful to me. It was like a relationship with my wife, or when I was younger with another woman. It touched me. And in the book, In the Suburb of Possible Suicide, I go way back to my youth and how I grew up. I started out as a middle-class kid, and then my dad made a lot of money, and we moved to a very rich town called Great Neck, and I was distressed because I felt out of sorts. I felt I wasn't one of the rich kids because I'd come from a poor background, and I had trouble adjusting. And I became very self-destructive, and I started to do some drugs, and I was getting into fights with kids, street fights, not boxing fights, and which was unusual for Great Neck because almost no one did that because it was a rich, spoiled town. But I loved it and I hated it at the same time. So, but all these things, Great Neck was kind of a sad internal thing to me, like boxing, like poetry, like my wife. So they're all a collage of magnificent self-interest that I went through.
Well, that's very interesting. I like your comparison of boxing to your relationship with a woman. It reminds me of a quote I saw I saw it on the internet, so it's not always that reliable. You have to really double check these things sometimes. But I saw a quote that was attributed to Floyd Patterson saying, "Boxing is it's like a cruel woman that you just can't leave. No matter how much she keeps hurting you, you just keep going back to her because you love her so much." I tell you, when I read that, it hit me so deeply in the heart, because that's been my relationship with boxing my whole life. You know.
I got to tell you about Floyd Patterson. We lived in Great Neck, and we sold the lot next to us to Floyd Patterson. And he was my neighbor for a few years while he was champion. And it was amazing. You know, his kids used to always come over to my lot and everything. And so he's my neighbor.
He's a real class act. He really was. He's actually he's a Catholic, and I remember that was really surprising to me when I heard he'd been a member of the Knights of Columbus and everything, and I think that he really tried to be a good model for youth.
Yeah.
But Patterson was amazing, and of course, you know, there's a long history with him, because you're talking about Customados, so that all ties into New York here. But anyway, I wanted to get back to in the suburb of possible suicide. What I observed about that is it opens up with real excitement. It explains. It's explaining that conflict of the adolescent, and I think it does it in a way with a lot of humor, and a lot of just really gripping imagery. And it reminded me of, on the one hand, of Kerouac and of Bukowski, and also a writer that you don't know named Mark Richard, and another one, John Fonte. Fonte was very influential to Bukowski, but all of them were influenced by Hemingway, and I think that in the first chapter, your alter ego character mentions his favorite author being Hemingway. Is that true, or is that something from the jail essays that I'm remembering?
You know what? I don't really remember. I knew Hemingway was a favorite author of mine, although I wasn't very impressed by his language. So I think of that era as Fitzgerald and Hemingway,
right.
And I thought Fitzgerald was a master of language and beautiful, and Hemingway was, you know, with his simple sentences. But the meat of his books was great, and you know, you felt manly when you read him.
Yeah.
But Fitzgerald was more like a poet, you know.
Right,
and
right.
I'm a poet mostly.
Right. One of the very first books I read when I was a kid was actually The Old Man and the Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that just blew me away. And I remember seeing that, you know, it was a collection of books my mother had, and it was Ernest Hemingway. And I heard of Ernest Hemingway being a great writer. I thought, well, people will think I'm an intellectual if I read this book. Plus, it was really, really short.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, I can handle that.
It wasn't like a novelette.
Yeah, it was kind of, I guess,
that's what he won the Nobel Prize for.
Was The Old Man and the Sea. Man, it's an amazing book. It's an amazing book.
It's amazing. But I as I say, I don't read anymore.
Right.
I'm an old man. I'm
right.
74, even though I'm so strong, it's ridiculous. But I'm 74.
It's ridiculous how strong this man is. I mean, I can't believe it. Yesterday I hit him in the stomach, and it hurt my hand. My hand still hurts today. I'm telling you. You know.
I'm 74. I'm so strong, and I don't have much time left to live, I feel. So I spend all my time writing. I'm working on a couple of books right now, and I just want to carry through the rest of my life and write and leave a legacy behind me.
Right.
And so I don't want to read anybody else. It's a waste of my time.
Right. I understand. Well, he's not a reader. He's a writer.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that this guy has 11 published books right now. So anyone who hasn't heard of David Awesome Lawrence, I think he just listed in the Library of Congress as David Lawrence. Look him up because this guy is an amazing writer, and he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. That's for sure.
You can find me on Amazon. I mean, a lot of my books are on Amazon.
Right.
And if you look at author's page there, it lists like 11 of them all on one page.
Well, this first chapter is kind of short. Would you like to read a couple of paragraphs?
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I don't remember it because I'm busy working on my new books.
Right.
But let me read the first paragraph.
Right.
My family had just moved to Great Neck Village, and I was roaming around trying to get a feel for my new home. My house was a French provincial white brick mini castle on a green hill. The curvy street was leafy compared to my old sunny flat geometrical block in suburban East Meadow. My family had gone from middle class to upper. We had arrived at wherever we had arrived. And so that's just right in the first paragraph. I'm coming from middle class to upper class, and how am I going to react to this, you know?
Right. But I tell you, man, it gripped me. I mean, going into that second paragraph, this chapter really flows. But the short one is 3 pages.
There's only 3 pages?
Yeah. If you don't
you're
remember,
right.
it's only 3 pages.
Of course I don't remember.
Kid?
I'm demented. 1 second. Okay, I said, now, I had a friend there. He wasn't my friend. It was a kid who was trying to bullfight with the train coming down.
Right.
So I looked over at the Mick Jagger kid because he looked like Jagger.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So since we've skipped a couple of paragraphs, he sees a kid that looks like Mick Jagger, but he's kind of not good looking. He just looks like Mick Jagger, right? He's not as good looking. Right. He's not cool like Jagger. But okay, go ahead. Now I looked over
at the Mick Jagger kid standing among weeds. He looked like he was up to no good, whatever that was. The ground rebelled against the sound of a train gassing in the distance. Choo, choo! The train was devouring the earth. It was coming down on him like a rolling stone. And Mick Jagger's the Rolling Stones, so I was joking.
Right.
He rushed to the tracks and stood in the center of them like a suicidal monk, ready to burn in Vietnam, and those are Vietnam days.
Right.
His arms spread out towards the rising red sun. On his right hand there was a dirty cast with scribbles and grass stains. He was carrying an injury with him to a new accident. Like some grand prehistoric beast, the train rushed around the corner, smacking into full view. The kid looked it square in the engine and held his position. The sunlight bathed him in like an injured angel. And rather than jump from the tracks in fear, he held his ground. "Killed me," he yelled, cackling. I held my fingers over my eyes. I didn't want to see it. Then I peeked. He ripped his sweater over his shoulders and held it out in front of him like a matador's cape. I heard the music of bullfights and the mangle of steel hooves. I thought of my favorite author in 10th grade, Ernest Hemingway. We were in Pamplona with Hemingway, and the steel bull was in the kid's face, breathing steam. Another few seconds, and he would end the pain of being him and of not being him. He would die in the glory of the bullfight, trampled in steel. "Turo, Turo," he shouted, and with less than a second left, when the train was about to trample him and drag him into little pieces, he broke from his trance and leaped to the side of the tracks, rolling in the grass and letting the train pass. Ole. So he's playing with death.
Right.
And the book is possible suicide.
Right.
Here it's possible suicide. What happens later, you'll see.
Right.
But so he's like almost playing with it at this stage.
Right. So the way you handle this story, I mean, it just it really grips me. The opening up with the first page. I mean, seeing this, I can see the kid, standing there in front of the train, and I think that it's something that other people have some experiences like this. I mean, I never did anything like that, but I remember friends talking about hopping trains back when I was a kid. Man, I would have never done anything that stupid.
Stupid. But that's true. That was memoir, not novel at that point.
Right. And But then I also is in the literary device they're using of the referring to Hemingway and imagery of the running with the bulls and everything.
Yeah.
It reminds you of The Sun Also Rises, where that's all described.
Which I love. I love
Right,
Soul Story.
wonderful novel. So I love how you bring that in there.
Thank you.
So now that we're talking a little bit about this novel, hopefully the people that are going to see this, they're going to run out and get
You can get it right on Amazon.
in the suburb of possible suicide, and then we can talk about On Jail, the essays. Is there anything you'd like to say about this particular book?
Yeah, I think I'm like iconoclastic and unusual because I go to jail and say, wow, this looks great. I'm happy to be there. And I mean, no one's ever said that before
Right.
that I can think of. You know, it was like my world had fallen apart, my business career was over, I didn't know what to do, and now I had a place where I'd meet a lot of nice guys that were nice, and I lived my life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was only 2 years, but I was happy to be there.
Yeah.
And now I'm still happy I went there because it rounds me out as a person. I mean, I meet very few people who have been to jail. You know, maybe for a day for drunken driving. But, you know, not many may get 2-year federal sentences.
Right.
And, you know, and to be honest with you, I might say it in there even on the day I left, that they sent me to Halfway House in New York. I was crying.
Yeah.
I was crying in the field. I said, I don't want to leave, you know.
But do you think you were partially institutionalized or no?
Yeah, I think I was institutionalized. That's what they say. You know, you become used to a place. It's protective of you. You don't want to go out. The outside world is not very threatening to me because I had screwed up in the outside world.
Right.
So yeah, I was institutionalized.
Right. So then, but I mean, what really impresses me about you as a person and about you as an author and about this book and all the other ones together is that it's all living proof of you overcoming that situation. And then quite a few people end up incarcerated, and when they end up incarcerated,
They get worse.
that becomes their life.
They become recidivistic and they start committing new crimes
Right.
or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
No, I made it into a positive situation. I made my youth, which became very troubled when I moved to Great Neck, into a positive thing. And at the end of the book, I meet my wife, who was my girlfriend, and I fall in love, and I, make the most out of what was a downhill slide.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think, if you're in a bad spot and things are not good, you can turn it around.
Sure.
Now, it turns around almost by itself because, I could be sitting there doing drugs in Great Neck and thinking, yeah, I'd like to turn it around, blah, 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 blah. But I don't. But, so what happened there, it's a freak thing. One comment, this other kid who was a preppy football player in Great Neck, was a nice kid, and he said to me, David, you're not as stupid as everybody thinks. And I was so shocked because I didn't know people thought I was stupid. But apparently, because I wasn't doing my homework, I wasn't doing anything. And I said, I can't have this. That night, I started studying. And I started studying for the next 10 years to get my doctorate, where I was a flunky.
Right.
And it was I owe it to this kid for making that comment, you're not as stupid as everybody. And it's in the book,
Right. Well, it's pretty cool because you never know. I mean, I guess that's something I hope that everyone that's encountering this conversation can either learn, if not ever understand this before, or always keep in mind is that you never know when someone is going to say something, or who's going to say something to you, or give you what you need to keep you going in life. It's an indication that we always have to keep the faith and not give up on ourselves and not give up on life.
And I hardly knew this kid. I mean, he was too good for me. He was like a football team and shit. And
Yeah.
I was a degenerate.
Yeah.
And he changed my life. I went from a D student to a straight A student almost overnight.
Yeah.
You know?
It was about time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about time.
Yeah.
So I thank him dearly. I don't even want to speak to him or meet him or anything. He did his work. That's all
Right.
right. He came in there, boom, changed my life around. That's it.
Well, that's great. And then, so you spent, how much time were you, how long were you a college professor, and then did you go into insurance after that, or?
Yeah, I was a college professor for maybe 4 years, and but you know I was lowly. I wasn't tenured or anything. I
Right.
was adjunct professor, and I was at several schools. I was at Hunter. I was at Herbert Lehman. I was at LaGuardia. I was at Keene College, and I taught at all of them. And then I got married, and I felt
You had to have better
more
paying
money.
job?
Yeah, I was getting nothing,
Yeah.
and so my father had been in insurance, so he said he knew a friend who was starting up a business. He'll try and get me in there, and it was like a one-man show, and I went there with a PhD making coffee for him. You know, that was a bum.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
know the
that's all
feeling.
right, yeah.
I don't know the feeling of having the PhD. I know the feeling of having the college degree and making coffee for people. So,
Yeah.
so all right.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and I was devastated because business and insurance to me was low life shit. I mean, I believed in literature and writing. And that's where I wanted to be at. But all right, I tried it, and within a couple of weeks, I liked it because I was basically sent around to meet clients and stuff, and I had fun. And then before you knew it, I was taking them out to lunch and drinking. So it was really fun. So it was not satisfying emotionally, but it was fun. And then when I started making money, bought a Rolls Royce, like nothing. And okay, so I felt like a big shot. I was a big shit. Again, it didn't reach me internally. It was almost like running away from myself through luxuries. But it was okay.
Right. Right. And then how'd you get into boxing then?
I was a tennis tournament player. I went to Murray Hill Racket Club. I played, and one of the guys in the locker room said, he's a little tired of tennis, and he just signed up for doing some boxing. I said, boxing, really? He said, yeah. I said to myself, maybe I'll try that. Now this is back in 1994, 1984.
Right.
And so I went to Gleason's gym, and I went up to Bruce and Ira were there. I was the original owner. And I said, I'd like to learn to box. Now, believe me, in those days, it wasn't all these women and all these
Right,
white guys.
right.
It was hardcore, tough fucking guys.
Yeah.
But I said, I'd like to learn to box. I said, okay. And they introduced me to Hector. He says, he'll train you.
So he's talking about Bruce Silverglade, the owner of Gleason's Gym, introduced him to Hector. That's Hector Roca, the great trainer who, the two fighters that he's most well known for training are the world champion Buddy McGirt and the world champion Arturo Gatti. And
Iran Barkley.
And Iran Barkley too. And he also was the trainer for Hilary Swank to get her ready for the movie $1 Million Baby. Okay.
True.
Yeah.
So I met Hector, and I said, well, how much is it? Now I'm used to taking private tennis lessons for like $100 an hour at UN Plaza and stuff. And he said, $5.
Yeah, now, don't anyone out there think that when you come to Mark Connor and to his business, Fighting Chance Boxing for Life, that that he's going to charge you $5. Multiply that by, 10, 20. That's okay. All right, go on.
So anyhow, it's $5. I said, I can't pay you $5. I said, it's embarrassing. He said, I'll tell you, I'll give you 30. Now, 30 an hour, right?
Right.
Now,
That's
in
a lot
those
of money
days,
in
that was
1984.
in those
Yeah.
days it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
He says, "You're mine." So I started my lessons with him, and before you knew it, I was coming to him 6 days a week. You
Yeah.
know? And of course, I loved it, and we got along really well. And then I started, and then a year into it or something, I fought my first amateur fight, which was the Wall Street Charities fights, which was really a famous sort of thing in Madison Square Garden. And they put me against, I had no fights, they put me against a kid who had 25 fights. I got knocked out 3 times, but I didn't get knocked out. So I was happy. Then I signed up for another fight, and they gave me some cop, and who was, now at this point I was probably 37, and this cop was 22, and he was on the police boxing team. He knocked me out cold. I mean, really cold, where I separated my shoulder, my ribs, and everything. I had to go to the hospital. So I was in no way discouraged.
Right. And I'm sure your wife didn't mind at all.
No, she minded plenty. I've had problems with her about boxing my whole life. But anyhow, I went to the doctor, and he was Breland's doctor. He helped me out. He put
Mark
me in a
Breland's
cast.
doctor?
Yeah. He put me in a cast, and within 3 days, I was back in the gym, boxing with one hand, in a cast with the other, just to practice. And then my next fight, I don't remember who it was. I didn't get knocked out the next 2 fights, but I lost. And then, so I was down 4, and then Hector said to me, "Look, David, you're embarrassing me. I can't work your corner anymore." I said, "Give me this one last fight." So I fought the guy I fought last time who beat me. I beat the shit out of him because I was so upset that I was losing my trainer. And I killed him. He was bloody all over the place. And then from then I started winning. And then they realized how old I was. I was now around 37, and the commission wouldn't let me fight in the amateurs anymore because I was over 35.
Right, over 35, yeah.
So
So
I started the white collar boxing.
Right.
And there's a thing up there, how I won the most educated fight in the history of pugilism, where I wrote an article about the first white collar fight ever. So I started a craze that's worldwide now. I don't know why I don't get more credit for it.
And I remember reading about that as a kid. I had a subscription to the Ring magazine. They talked about white collar boxing, people coming down to Gleason's gym.
Yeah.
So, I think you've got a copy of the book here, but the story that he's just been telling me about his boxing career, you can read that in 2 books. One is Lane Changes, and one is The King of White Collar Boxing. And this is the brilliant.
This on Amazon too.
Yeah, this is a really beautiful picture of him here. This is a picture. This picture is also on the front of his office store.
Yeah. That was taken in
King of White Collar Boxing.
Atlantic City at a fight of mine.
Yeah, this is one bad dude among former English professors. That's for sure.
I'm not your typical English professor.
Yeah, not at all. Right, and so. This is a great conversation we've had here. I've really enjoyed it. In closing, what I'd like to do is bring up an interview that I participated in during 2020 at Element Gym in St. Paul, Minnesota, where Laura Vosica of a press called Gabriel Thorne Press was interviewing me in an anthology that she published, the first 2 poems I'd ever published. And she's asked me about being a writer and being a boxer. And are there other writers that I know of who are, or other boxers I know of who are writers? One of them is Eddie Futch. Eddie Futch is known to be a master. I believe he's an expert on the English Romantics of the 19th century. But he wrote his own poetry and stuff like that. But I mentioned in the interview, I said, there's David Lawrence in Gleason's Gym. And I said that my dream is to be like David and have an office in Gleason's Gym. Be making my living training boxers and writing when I'm not training them in my office at Gleason's Gym. I'd love to be able to do the same thing that he's doing here. So that's where we are right now in the office of David Awesome Lawrence. So I'm going to move the camera to kind of show a little bit of the office here. This is a place that. This is a place that he spends his days in. You can see all these trophies and pictures and so forth. So, to all my friends out there and all my enemies, thank you for taking the time, the valuable time of your life to spend about a half an hour listening to me and David Lawrence talk about his life and times in boxing and in writing. And please frequently visit boxersandwritersmagazine.com when you can. And we'll be having more conversations like this hopefully in the future. Everyone have a great week and keep on writing and keep on fighting. Thank you.
Writer and fighter, that's what we are.
That's correct. Bye now.
Bye.